The broken dreadnought. The alarm klaxons of mining station Prometheus 7 wailed across the asteroid belt as something massive appeared on their sensors. Elena Rodriguez looked up from her sandwich, mayo dripping onto her work coveralls, and squinted at the emergency display flashing red warnings throughout the mess hall. "Well, that's new," she muttered, taking another bite of her turkey club. The massive shape drifting past their viewports was unmistakably alien. 3 kilometers of crystalline architecture caught the light from the nearby star, casting rainbow patterns across the station's hull. It was beautiful, elegant, and completely dead in space. No engine glow, no running lights, just a gorgeous piece of technology slowly tumbling through the void. Station Commander Harris burst through the mess hall doors, his face flushed with panic. "Elena, thank God you're here. We've got a situation," Elena chewed thoughtfully, examining the dreadnought through the reinforced window. The ship's design was familiar from the intelligence briefings all station personnel received. Vorthak Empire, one of the 3 major galactic powers, known for their crystal-based technology and their absolute conviction that they were superior to all other species, especially humans. "Let me guess," Elena said, gesturing with half her sandwich toward the crippled warship. "Our new neighbors need a tow truck." Harris nodded grimly. "They're hailing us on emergency frequencies. Engine failure, life support failing, the works. Captain Zix 4471 is requesting immediate assistance." Elena raised an eyebrow. The Vorthak rarely requested anything from humans. They usually demanded, threatened, or simply took what they wanted. For them to actually ask for help meant they were truly desperate. "Patch me through," Elena said, wiping her hands on a napkin. The main display flickered to life, revealing the angular, crystalline features of a Vorthak captain. Captain Zix 4471 stood nearly 8 feet tall, his translucent blue skin shot through with veins of silver light that pulsed in complex patterns. His 4 arms gestured impatiently as he spoke, his voice carrying the characteristic harmonic resonance of his species. "Primitive mining facility," the captain began without preamble. "The Imperial Dreadnought Infinite Clarity has experienced a catastrophic system failure. We require immediate access to your repair facilities and technical personnel." Elena studied the alien's imperious expression and decided she didn't like his tone. "Good afternoon to you too, Captain. I'm Elena Rodriguez, Chief Engineer. What seems to be the problem?" Captain Zix 4471's silver veins flared brighter, indicating either surprise or irritation. "You are the facility's senior technical specialist?" "That would be me," Elena confirmed, finishing her sandwich. "Though I prefer engineer to technical specialist, less pretentious." The captain's 4 eyes blinked in sequence, a sign of deep confusion among his species. "This facility is staffed by humans. Your species lacks the technological sophistication to comprehend, much less repair, Vorthak engineering." Elena smiled pleasantly. "Well, that's a pretty bold assumption considering your ship is currently drifting like space junk and mine is running just fine. But hey, I'm sure you'll figure it out eventually." The communications channel fell silent. Through the viewports they could see the massive dreadnought continuing its slow tumble, completely powerless. Elena could practically hear the alien captain's pride wrestling with his rapidly diminishing options. Finally, Captain Zix 4471 spoke again, his harmonic voice strained. "Perhaps a preliminary assessment could be conducted to determine if your facilities might be adequate for basic diagnostic procedures." "Sure thing," Elena said cheerfully. "Dock at port 7. I'll grab my toolbox." An hour later, Elena floated through the docking tube connecting Prometheus 7 to the Infinite Clarity, her magnetic boots clanking against the metal flooring. Behind her floated a simple human tool bag, the kind any mechanic might carry, filled with wrenches, diagnostic tablets, and spare parts that looked positively primitive compared to the gleaming crystal technology surrounding them. Captain Zix 4471 met them at the airlock, flanked by 2 subordinates whose silver veins pulsed in what Elena recognized as barely contained contempt. The Vorthak had translated millions of alien languages, but they had never quite mastered human body language. They missed the fact that Elena's relaxed posture and casual demeanor weren't signs of ignorance or submission, but rather the confidence of someone who had fixed everything from coffee makers to fusion reactors. "The quantum resonance drive is located in the primary engineering section," the captain announced, leading them through corridors that seemed to be carved from single massive crystals. "Our most experienced technicians have been unable to determine the cause of the cascade failure. Elena nodded absently, running her hand along the crystalline walls. The material was warm to the touch and hummed with barely contained energy. Fascinating stuff, really. She had read papers on Vorthak crystal matrices, but seeing them in person was something else entirely. The way they channeled and focused energy was remarkably elegant, though she could already spot several design inefficiencies that human engineering could improve. They entered the engineering section and Elena let out a low whistle. The quantum drive dominated the center of the vast chamber, a towering spire of interconnected crystals that reached from floor to ceiling. Dozens of Vorthak technicians scurried around its base, their silver veins flashing in rapid, complex patterns as they communicated in their light-based language. "Impressive," Elena said, genuinely meaning it. "Though I can see why you're having problems." Captain Zix 4471's eyes snapped toward her. "You can identify the malfunction from visual inspection alone?" Elena pulled out a simple diagnostic tablet, the kind human engineers used for routine maintenance checks. "Well, for starters, your harmonic resonance is about 15% off optimal frequency. See how the third-tier crystals are glowing blue instead of white? That's your cascade failure right there." The Vorthak technicians stopped their work and stared at the human in disbelief. Their light conversations flickered with what Elena's translation software identified as extreme agitation. "That is not possible," one of the technicians managed in broken galactic standard. "Resonance harmonics require specialized quantum analysis equipment. Your primitive scanner could not possibly detect such anomalies." Elena shrugged and walked over to the drive assembly, ignoring the way the alien technicians scrambled out of her path. She held up her tablet, which was indeed showing detailed readouts of the crystal matrix's energy patterns. "Human engineering principle number 1, she said conversationally, running a diagnostic cable from her tablet to an access port that the Vorthak apparently hadn't known existed. "If you can't measure it, you can't fix it. We learned a long time ago to build sensors that can detect pretty much anything." The tablet's screen filled with data streams that made the Vorthak technician's eyes widen in shock. Energy flow patterns, quantum field fluctuations, harmonic resonance frequencies, and a dozen other readings that their own equipment had been unable to provide. "The secondary coupling array is also showing stress fractures," Elena continued, pointing to a section of the drive that appeared flawless to everyone else in the room. "Probably been building up for months. And your power regulation matrix is running about 30% over safe parameters. No wonder the whole system crashed." Captain Zix 4471 moved closer, his forearms gesturing in what Elena recognized as barely controlled panic. "Those components cannot be repaired. They are grown in the crystal forges of our homeworld, a process that takes decades. Without them, the infinite clarity is nothing more than an elaborate tomb." Elena looked up from her tablet with genuine confusion. "Can't be repaired? Says who?" "The manufacturers, obviously. The crystal matrices are quantum locked to prevent unauthorized modification. Any attempt to alter their structure results in immediate and irreversible failure." Elena stared at him for a moment, then burst out laughing. "Oh, honey, you really don't know much about human engineering, do you?" She reached into her tool bag and pulled out what appeared to be a simple soldering iron, though its tip glowed with a soft blue light that made the nearby crystals resonate sympathetically. "Human engineering principle number 2, Elena said, activating the device. "Everything can be fixed, it's just a matter of figuring out how." The Vorthak watched in horror as Elena approached their irreplaceable, millennia-old crystal drive with what appeared to be a primitive welding tool. Captain Zix 4471 started forward, probably to stop her, but froze when Elena's device began interacting with the quantum-locked crystals. Instead of shattering or failing catastrophically, the damaged crystal matrices began to restructure themselves, their internal patterns shifting and realigning under Elena's careful guidance. The stress fractures sealed themselves, the harmonic frequencies stabilized, and the entire drive assembly began glowing with renewed energy. "There we go," Elena said with satisfaction, stepping back from her work. "Good as new, better actually. I improved the power coupling efficiency by about 12% while I was at it." The engineering section fell completely silent except for the renewed humming of the quantum drive. Every Vorthak in the room stared at Elena as if she had just performed an act of impossible magic. Their silver veins pulsed in rapid, chaotic patterns that Elena's translator couldn't even begin to interpret. Finally, Captain Zix 4471 found his voice. What did you? That should not be possible." Elena packed her tools away with the casual efficiency of someone who had just completed a routine maintenance job. "Like I said, Everything can be fixed. Your quantum lock system is pretty clever, but it's really just an encryption algorithm. Once you understand the underlying mathematics, it's not that hard to work around. She pulled out a data pad and handed it to the stunned captain. Here's a full diagnostic report. I also took the liberty of optimizing your power distribution network and upgrading your harmonic dampeners. You should see about a 20% improvement in overall efficiency. Captain Zix4471 stared at the data pad with all four eyes, his species equivalent of intense shock. The report was more comprehensive than anything his own engineers had ever produced, written in technical language that demonstrated a deep understanding of Vorthak technology that should have been impossible for any non-Vorthak to possess. This level of analysis would require years of study, he whispered. Decades of specialized training. How does a human mining engineer possess such knowledge? Elena shrugged, shouldering her tool bag. I read a lot. Plus, engineering is engineering, you know? The principles are pretty much universal, even if the materials and methods vary. Crystal-based quantum systems aren't really that different from the fusion reactors we use. Same basic concepts, just applied differently. She started walking toward the exit, leaving a room full of stunned aliens in her wake. Anyway, you should be good to go. The drive will need about an hour to fully cycle up, but after that you'll be running better than factory specifications. Wait, Captain Zix4471 called after her. What payment do you require for this service? Elena paused at the doorway and looked back with a genuine smile. Payment? You're stranded travelers in need of help. Where I come from, we call that basic human decency. As she disappeared into the docking tube, the Vorthak captain found himself staring at the perfectly functioning quantum drive that his own engineers had declared irreparable. Around him, his crew exchanged nervous glances, their light conversations flickering with a new and disturbing realization. If a single human engineer could casually repair their most advanced technology with primitive tools and dismiss their quantum-locked security as not that hard, what did that say about humanity's true capabilities? And more importantly, what did it say about the Vorthak Empire's assumptions regarding human technological development? Captain Zix4471 looked at the diagnostic report again, noting details and insights that his own specialists had completely missed. For the first time in his long military career, he began to wonder if the Vorthak Empire had made a serious error in dismissing humanity as a primitive, harmless species. The thought terrified him more than any weapon ever could. The impossible repair. 3 hours later, the Infinite Clarity hummed with power levels that exceeded its original design specifications. Captain Zix4471 stood in his command center watching diagnostic displays that showed impossible readings. Every system was running at peak efficiency, several were actually performing better than theoretical maximums, and the quantum drive was generating more stable energy than it had when it first left the shipyards. His chief engineer, Subcommander Crix2298, approached with the cautious movements of someone delivering terrible news. Captain, I have completed our analysis of the humans' modifications. Report, Zix4471 commanded, though he suspected he wasn't going to like what he heard. The repairs are incomprehensible, sir. The humans somehow bypassed 17 different security protocols that were specifically designed to prevent unauthorized access. She modified quantum-locked crystals that our own manufacturers insist cannot be altered, and she did it all with equipment that our sensors classify as primitive construction tools. The captain's silver veins pulsed with agitation. There must be some explanation, hidden technology perhaps, advanced scanning equipment concealed within those crude devices. Crix2298's light patterns flickered with uncertainty. I conducted detailed scans of everything the human brought aboard, sir. Her tools are exactly what they appear to be. Simple mechanical devices, basic diagnostic equipment, nothing more advanced than what a typical mining operation might require. On the main view screen, they could see Prometheus 7 continuing its routine operations. Human workers moved between the mining platforms with casual efficiency, operating heavy machinery and processing refined ores as if nothing unusual had happened. It was a scene of such ordinary industrial activity that it seemed almost insulting after what Elena Rodriguez had just accomplished. Perhaps, the captain suggested hopefully, this Elena Rodriguez is some kind of exceptional individual, a genius among her species, trained in advanced techniques that other humans lack. Before Crix2298 could respond, the communication system chimed with an incoming message from the mining station. Elena's face appeared on the screen, still wearing her grease-stained coveralls and looking like she'd just finished another routine maintenance job. Hey there, Captain, she said cheerfully. Just wanted to check in and make sure everything's running smoothly. Your power readings look good from here. Engineer Rodriguez, Zix4471 replied formally, "My crew is impressed by your technical capabilities. Such expertise must require extensive specialized training." Elena laughed, the sound somehow both warm and unsettling. Specialized training? Not really. I mean, I went to engineering school like everyone else, did my apprenticeship on a deep space construction crew, worked my way up through various assignments. Pretty standard career path for a human engineer. Everyone else? Crix2298 whispered, his translated voice barely audible. But surely, the captain pressed, your education included advanced study of quantum crystalline matrices, years of theoretical preparation? Oh, that, Elena waved dismissively. I took a couple elective courses on xenotech applications back in university, mostly just to satisfy my curiosity about how other species approach engineering problems. Your crystal systems are fascinating, by the way. Very elegant, though a bit over-engineered for practical applications. The command center fell silent. Elena had just described what the Vorthak considered their greatest technological achievement as over-engineered, and she'd learned about it as an elective course, a casual addition to her education, pursued out of curiosity rather than necessity. I'm curious about something, though, Elena continued, apparently oblivious to the existential crisis she was causing. Why did your designers incorporate so many redundant safety systems? The quantum lock protocols, the harmonic inhibitors, all those access restrictions, seems like it would make routine maintenance unnecessarily complicated. Captain Zix4471 felt something that he had never experienced before in his military career. Genuine uncertainty. Those systems, they prevent unauthorized modification. They ensure that only qualified Vorthak technicians can service our equipment. Right, but why? Elena asked, her tone genuinely puzzled. I mean, if someone needs to fix something, shouldn't they be able to fix it? All those security measures just make it harder to do repairs when something breaks down. Because, the captain said slowly, modification of quantum crystalline matrices requires decades of specialized training and access to Vorthak manufacturing facilities. Elena tilted her head, her expression suggesting she was trying to understand a fundamentally foreign concept. Or you could just, learn how the crystals work and fix them with whatever tools you have available. It's not like quantum mechanics changes depending on what species is doing the math. She paused, then added with what seemed like genuine concern. You guys do teach basic quantum mechanics in your schools, right? I'd hate to think your engineers are working with equipment they don't really understand. The implication hit the Vorthak command crew like a physical blow. Elena wasn't suggesting that their engineers lacked specialized knowledge. She was suggesting that they lacked basic understanding of their own technology, that they had built systems so complex and restrictive that their own people couldn't properly maintain them. Our engineers are highly trained, Crix2298 protested, his light patterns flashing indignantly. They undergo centuries of preparation before being authorized to work on quantum systems. Centuries? Elena's eyebrows rose. Wow, I mean, it's complex stuff, sure, but centuries seems like overkill. How long do your people usually live? The average Vorthak lifespan is approximately 1,200 of your years, the captain replied. Elena whistled softly. So you're spending like a quarter of your entire lives just learning how to fix your own equipment. That seems inefficient. She pulled out her diagnostic tablet, the same simple device she'd used to repair their irreplaceable quantum drive. This little guy can analyze and diagnose problems with pretty much any known technology. Cost me about 3 months' salary, and I could teach someone to use it in an afternoon. We figured out a long time ago that if you make tools too complicated to use, people can't actually get work done. The humans' casual dismissal of what the Vorthak considered advanced engineering principles was beginning to paint a disturbing picture. Elena wasn't describing superior technology or exceptional training. She was describing a completely different approach to engineering, one that prioritized practical functionality over theoretical perfection. Engineer Rodriguez, Captain Zix4471 said carefully, "May I ask what other species technologies you have studied?" "Oh, most of them, I suppose. Calaxian biomechanical systems, Narthan gravity manipulation, Zephyrian energy matrices. It's all pretty interesting stuff, though honestly, a lot of it seems unnecessarily complicated, like they're trying to prove how smart they are instead of just solving problems." She gestured towards something off-screen. "We've got a Calaxian bioship in for maintenance right now, actually. Poor thing's having neural cascade issues because its designers never considered what would happen if the organic components got a virus. Totally predictable problem, but they never built in any kind of immune response system." "You are repairing a Calaxian bioship?" Crix2298 asked, his voice rising with disbelief. Those systems are even more complex than our quantum drives. The neural matrices alone require specialized biotechnological expertise that takes decades to master. Elena shrugged. Biology's just another engineering discipline. Same principles apply. Understand how it works, figure out what's wrong, fix it with whatever tools you have available. Though I'll admit, the bioship's immune system upgrade I'm installing is borrowed from human medical technology. Sometimes the best solution comes from a completely different field. She glanced at something beyond the camera's range. Speaking of which, I should probably get back to work. The bioship's owner is getting anxious, and I promise to have it ready by tomorrow. The transmission ended, leaving the Vorthak command crew staring at a blank screen. Captain Zix 4471 found himself confronting a reality that challenged everything he thought he knew about galactic technological hierarchies. Elena Rodriguez wasn't just a capable engineer, she was casually working on technologies from multiple species, treating their most advanced systems as routine maintenance problems. She had repaired their quantum drive with primitive tools and was apparently upgrading a Calaxian bioship with human medical technology. More disturbing still was her attitude. She wasn't boasting or trying to impress anyone. She was simply doing her job, applying what she clearly considered basic engineering principles to solve problems that other species considered impossibly complex. Sir, Crix2298 said quietly, if this human represents typical capabilities for her species, then we have seriously underestimated humanity, the captain finished. The question is, what else have we been wrong about? As if summoned by his words, another alarm began sounding throughout the ship, but this time, it wasn't indicating a system failure. It was the proximity alert, warning them that something was approaching the infinite clarity at high speed. On the tactical display, a sleek human vessel appeared, moving with the kind of precise control that spoke of advanced propulsion systems and superior piloting skills. It was smaller than the Vorthak dreadnought, but its energy signature was unlike anything in their databases. A new voice came over the communication system, calm and professional. Vorthak vessel, this is Captain Sarah Chen of the UES Endeavor. We received Elena's maintenance report and thought we'd swing by to make sure everything's working properly. Hope you don't mind us checking up on our favorite engineer's handiwork. Captain Zix 4471 stared at the approaching human ship, his mind reeling with implications. Elena hadn't been working alone. She was part of a larger human organization, one that apparently considered repairing alien dreadnoughts routine enough to warrant follow-up visits. The peaceful mining station, the casual engineer, the friendly offer of assistance, it was all beginning to look like something far more sophisticated than it had initially appeared. And Captain Zix 4471 was starting to realize that his ship and crew might be in more danger than they had ever imagined. The terrifying truth. The UES Endeavor docked with Prometheus 7 with the kind of precise, effortless maneuvering that made Captain Zix 4471's navigational officers exchange nervous glances. Human ships weren't supposed to be that agile. According to Imperial intelligence, human technology was decades behind Vorthak capabilities, their vessels crude and inefficient compared to crystalline perfection. Yet the Endeavor moved like a living thing, its hull shimmering with what appeared to be adaptive armor plating. Energy readings suggested propulsion systems that operated on principles the Vorthak databases didn't recognize, and the ship's overall design spoke of engineering philosophy focused on function rather than form. Captain Sarah Chen's image appeared on the main screen, her uniform bearing insignia that Zix 4471's computer identified as belonging to something called the United Earth Survey Corps. She was an older woman with graying hair and the kind of steady, competent demeanor that experienced officers recognized in each other regardless of species. Captain Zix 4471, Chen said with a polite nod. I hope Elena's repairs are holding up well. She mentioned you had a cascade failure in your quantum drive system. Nasty problem, but she's fixed worse. Your engineer's work has been satisfactory, Zix 4471 replied carefully. Though I confess surprise at finding human vessels in this region, our navigational charts indicated this was an uninhabited system. Chen smiled, and there was something in that expression that made the Vorthak captain deeply uncomfortable. Oh, we've been here for about 15 years now. Quiet little mining operation, nothing too exciting. Though we do get interesting visitors from time to time. She gestured towards something off-screen. Elena tells me you were surprised by her technical capabilities. That's understandable. Most species assume humans are still working with primitive technology. Are you not? Crix2298 asked, his translator giving his voice a skeptical tone. Well, that depends on how you define primitive, Chen replied thoughtfully. We certainly don't build things the way other species do. Take your quantum drive, for example. Beautiful piece of engineering, very elegant, extremely sophisticated, but it's also incredibly fragile and almost impossible to repair in the field. She pulled up what appeared to be a technical schematic. Human engineers looked at that design about 20 years ago and asked themselves, what if we made something that worked just as well but could be fixed with basic tools by anyone with standard training? The schematic showed a quantum drive system that looked almost crude compared to Vorthak crystalline perfection. It was blocky, utilitarian, and apparently built from standardized components that could be manufactured anywhere, but the performance specifications made Zix-4471's eyes widen in shock. This system generates 40% more power than our drives, he whispered. 43% actually, Chen corrected, and it's about half the size, requires 90% less maintenance, and can be repaired by any competent engineer in the field. We call it the Mark 7 quantum generator. Every human ship has one. The implications hit the Vorthak command crew like a series of hammer blows. Humans hadn't just learned to repair alien technology. They had reverse engineered it, improved upon it, and mass-produced superior versions. The primitive mining station they'd dismissed was actually equipped with technology that surpassed their own capabilities. But how? Crix-2298 demanded. Such development would require decades of research, massive industrial capabilities, resources that a species like humanity simply doesn't possess. Chen's smile grew wider, and Zix-4471 realized it wasn't entirely friendly. Subcommander, I think you're operating under some fundamental misunderstandings about human capabilities. May I ask what your intelligence services told you about us? That humans are a recently spacefaring species, the captain replied reluctantly. Limited industrial base, primitive technology, no real military capabilities, a minor species of little consequence to galactic politics. I see, Chen said, her tone growing noticeably cooler. And based on that assessment, the Vorthak Empire classified humanity as what exactly? Zix-4471 felt his silver veins begin to pulse with what his species called anticipatory dread. As a potential resource acquisition target. The communications channel fell silent for a long moment. When Chen spoke again, her voice carried a quality that made every Vorthak on the bridge instinctively step backward. Resource acquisition target, she repeated slowly. That's an interesting way of saying conquest and enslavement. Tell me, Captain, did your Empire's intelligence services mention anything about human military history? They indicated that humans have engaged in primitive warfare using chemical explosives and kinetic weapons, Crix-2298 offered, apparently hoping to demonstrate superior knowledge. Chen laughed, but there was no humor in the sound. Chemical explosives and kinetic weapons. Right. I suppose they didn't mention that we've been refining the art of warfare for over 10,000 years? That we fought wars on every conceivable scale, in every possible environment, against every imaginable enemy? She leaned forward, her image filling the screen. Captain, humanity didn't develop advanced technology despite our violent history. We developed it because of our violent history. Every human innovation, every breakthrough, every advancement has been driven by our absolute determination to ensure that we never lose a fight that matters. The main display shifted to show new images. Massive human shipyards, fleets of vessels that dwarfed the infinite clarity, weapon systems that made Vorthak plasma cannons look like children's toys, industrial complexes that stretched across entire continents, mining operations that hollowed out asteroids, construction projects that reshaped planets. This is what human space looks like, Captain, Chen said quietly. Not the backward primitive civilization your intelligence services described. We've been watching, learning, preparing for over a century. Every species that encounters us sees exactly what we want them to see. Zix-4471's mandibles began clicking in rapid, panicked patterns. This cannot be accurate. Our sensors would have detected such massive industrial activities. Our intelligence networks would have reported these capabilities. Your sensors detect what we allow them to detect, Chen replied calmly. Your intelligence networks report what we choose to let them discover. Captain, humanity learned a very important lesson early in our expansion into space. The galaxy is full of species that consider other species to be resources to be exploited. She gestured toward Elena, who had just entered the frame carrying what appeared to be a simple tablet, but was probably another piece of disguised advanced technology. So we developed a simple strategy: appear harmless, helpful, and slightly primitive. Let other species underestimate us while we learn everything we can about their capabilities, their weaknesses, their intentions. Elena waved cheerfully at the camera. Hi again, Captain. Sorry to interrupt, but I finished upgrading that Calaxian bioship. Turns out their neural cascade problem was actually a symptom of a much more serious design flaw. Their entire biological matrix was vulnerable to a specific type of quantum interference that could theoretically be weaponized. She paused, her expression growing more serious. Good thing humans would never do something like that, right? I mean, deliberately introducing a weakness into alien technology that we could exploit later would be pretty underhanded. The words hung in the air like a physical threat. Captain Zix 4471 suddenly understood that Elena's repairs to his quantum drive hadn't just fixed their problems. They had potentially introduced new vulnerabilities that humans could exploit if they chose to. Every helpful interaction, every primitive repair, every curious question about Vorthak technology had been intelligence gathering. "You have been studying us," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "Of course we have," Chen confirmed. "Just like your empire has been studying us, planning to add us to your list of conquered species. The difference is we're actually good at it." She stood up, her movement somehow conveying both casual authority and barely restrained threat. "Captain, I'm going to give you some free advice. When you return to Vorthak space, I suggest you recommend that your empire reconsider its classification of humanity. We're not a resource acquisition target. We're not a primitive species ripe for conquest. We're the neighbors you really don't want to make angry." The screen shifted again, showing a star map that made Zix 4471's blood freeze in his veins. Human territory wasn't the small cluster of systems their intelligence had reported. It was vast, spanning hundreds of star systems, with clear indications of defensive installations, fleet bases, and industrial centers that could support military operations on a scale the Vorthak had never imagined. "This is our space, Captain," Chen said quietly. "All of it. Every system, every planet, every asteroid. We've been here longer than your intelligence services realized, and we've been busy. Very busy." She leaned back in her chair, her expression becoming almost conversational. "Now I want to make something perfectly clear. Humanity has no interest in conquest or expansion at your empire's expense. We're perfectly happy to coexist peacefully with our galactic neighbors. We'll trade with you, share knowledge, even provide assistance when you need it." Her voice hardened. "But if your empire decides to pursue its resource acquisition plans regarding humanity, you'll discover that we've spent the last century preparing for exactly that scenario. And Captain, I promise you that such a conflict would not end the way your strategists expect." Elena stepped fully into view, still holding her innocuous-looking tablet. "You know what the really scary part is, Captain? Everything I just did to your ship? Any human engineer could have done the same thing. We don't have special geniuses or secret super soldiers. We just have a different approach to problems." She tapped her tablet, and suddenly every system on the Infinite Clarity began displaying new information. Power efficiency ratings, structural integrity assessments, weapons system analyses, and detailed schematics of technologies that should have been completely classified. "While I was fixing your quantum drive," Elena continued conversationally, "I also conducted a complete survey of your ship's capabilities, defense systems, weapons arrays, communication networks, life support systems. Standard procedure for any human engineer working on alien technology." Captain Zix 4471 felt his legs give out beneath him. He sank into his command chair, staring at displays that showed his ship's most closely guarded secrets laid bare for human analysis. Every strength, every weakness, every potential vulnerability had been cataloged with casual efficiency. "Your plasma cannon array has a 17% power fluctuation in the tertiary manifolds," Elena noted, reading from her tablet. "Your shield generators are running hot because someone miscalibrated the cooling system. And your navigation computer has a software bug that could theoretically be exploited to introduce false sensor readings." She looked up with the same friendly smile she'd worn when first offering to help. "I took the liberty of fixing most of these problems while I was working on your drive. Consider it professional courtesy. Though I should mention that I also documented everything for our technical databases." The true scope of what had happened was becoming clear to the Vorthak crew. Their rescue had been a comprehensive intelligence operation, conducted with such skill and subtlety that they had never suspected they were being analyzed. Every moment Elena had spent aboard their ship, she had been learning, cataloging, and preparing. "This is impossible," Crix 2298 protested, his light patterns flickering with desperate denial. "No single individual could possess such broad technical knowledge. No species could maintain such extensive deception." Captain Chen smiled again, and this time the expression was genuinely amused. "Sub-Commander, you're still thinking in terms of individual capabilities. Let me introduce you to a concept that seems to be foreign to most galactic civilizations: collective intelligence." The display changed to show something that made the Vorthak bridge crew gasp in unison. It was a real-time communication network connecting billions of human minds across hundreds of star systems. Engineers, scientists, military specialists, and technical experts sharing information, collaborating on problems, and pooling their knowledge in ways that created capabilities far beyond what any individual could achieve. When Elena was working on your quantum drive, Chen explained, she wasn't working alone. She had access to the combined expertise of every human engineer who had ever encountered Vorthak technology. Every repair manual, every technical analysis, every piece of intelligence we've gathered over the past century. Elena nodded enthusiastically. It's like having a conversation with the smartest people in human space. I upload a problem and within minutes I have solutions from specialists who've dealt with similar issues. The biological matrix upgrade I installed on that Calaxian ship, that came from a xenobiology team working 300 light-years away. The implications were staggering. Humanity hadn't just developed advanced technology. They had created a civilization-wide problem-solving network that allowed them to tackle challenges with unprecedented collective intelligence. Every human was potentially as capable as their entire species' accumulated knowledge. But why? Captain Zix 4471 asked weakly. Why develop such capabilities? Why maintain such elaborate deceptions? Captain Chen's expression grew serious. Because, Captain, we've studied galactic history. We know what happens to species that appear weak and vulnerable. They get conquered, enslaved, or exterminated by civilizations that consider themselves superior. She gestured toward the star map that still showed the true extent of human territory. Humanity made a collective decision a long time ago. Never again. Never again would we allow ourselves to be victims. Never again would we be caught unprepared. Never again would we underestimate the threats we face. Elena set down her tablet and looked directly at the camera. The thing is, Captain, we actually like most of the species we've encountered. The Calaxians are brilliant biotechnicians, the Narthans have fascinating insights into gravitational physics, and the Vorthak crystal technology is genuinely elegant. We don't want to fight anyone. Her expression hardened slightly. But if someone insists on starting a fight, we intend to finish it, decisively, permanently, with extreme prejudice. The communication system chimed with new incoming signals. Additional human vessels were appearing on the Infinite Clarity's sensors, their energy signatures unlike anything in the Vorthak databases. Ships that moved with impossible grace, weapons systems that operated on unknown principles, and defensive capabilities that seemed to mock conventional military doctrine. Captain, Chen said, her voice taking on a formal tone, I'm going to make you an offer. Your ship is repaired and fully functional. You're free to leave whenever you choose. But before you go, I want you to understand exactly what you'll be reporting to your superiors. The main display shifted one final time, showing an image that made Captain Zix 4471's breath catch in his throat. It was a human fleet exercise, thousands of vessels operating in perfect coordination, demonstrating capabilities that dwarfed anything the Vorthak Empire could field. Ships that could apparently travel faster than light without using established hyperspace lanes, weapons that could crack planets, and defensive systems that seemed to violate known laws of physics. This is what happens when humans stop pretending to be primitive, Chen said quietly. This is what we become when we decide that peaceful coexistence is no longer possible. Captain, I sincerely hope your empire chooses wisdom over ambition. Elena picked up her tablet and smiled one last time. Oh, and Captain? When you get home, you might want to have your engineers run a full diagnostic on any technology that's been repaired by helpful humans over the years. Just a suggestion. The transmission ended, leaving the Vorthak bridge in complete silence. Captain Zix 4471 stared at the blank screen, his mind struggling to process the magnitude of what he had learned. Humanity wasn't a primitive species ripe for conquest. They were a sophisticated civilization that had been allowing themselves to be underestimated while preparing for war on a scale that defied imagination. Sir, Crix 22298 said quietly, what are your orders? Zix 4471 looked around his bridge, at displays that still showed impossible human capabilities, at crew members whose light patterns flickered with barely controlled terror. He thought about the casual competence with which Elena had dismantled their most advanced technology, the vast intelligence network that had cataloged their every weakness, and the fleet of vessels that could apparently appear anywhere without warning. Set course for home, he said finally. Maximum speed, and prepare a priority communication to Imperial Command. What should the message say, sir? Captain Zix 4471 closed all four eyes, feeling older than his 8 centuries of life. When he opened them again, his voice carried the weight of absolute certainty. Tell them that humanity is not a resource acquisition target. Tell them that any aggressive action against human space would be suicide. And tell them that we need to completely reassess everything we thought we knew about our galactic neighbors. As the Infinite Clarity powered up its quantum drive and prepared to depart, Captain Zix 4471 took one last look at Prometheus 7. The mining station continued its routine operations, human workers going about their daily tasks with the same casual efficiency they had shown throughout this encounter. It looked peaceful, harmless, almost boring. But now he knew the truth. Behind that facade of ordinary industrial activity lay a civilization that had turned deception into an art form, cooperation into a weapon, and preparation into an absolute guarantee of survival. Humanity had spent a century becoming the most dangerous species in the galaxy while convincing everyone else that they were harmless primitives. As his ship jumped to hyperspace, Captain Zix 4471 found himself hoping that the Vorthak Empire would listen to his warning, because if they didn't, he had just witnessed a preview of how the next galactic war would end, and it wouldn't be in the Empire's favor.